Hey everyone, welcome to Zen Hustlers Balance. This is our podcast where we help struggling entrepreneurs, founders, and any busy business professionals who are seeking more balance on the edge. Part of our mission is to support people who are really walking the talk and showing how did they go through their personal journey and what tools and resources and things do they use and leverage on a daily basis as far as habits, routines, and practices to give them more of that balance on the edge where you're trying to be highly productive, highly effective with a big impact in the world and not burn yourself out or worse, potentially have health or damaging mental health issues. So today we get to be back in person, so I'm really excited. We're taking some of our podcasts offline and back in person with Sam Kabert. Sam and I both live in Santa Cruz and we connected recently and I thought he has his own podcast.
Yep. And
we're going to be hearing about that. And so we're going to be talking to Sam today about what he uses personally. We're going to be talking about his book, Soul Life Balance. As you can see, it's a perfect synergy for the things that we're talking about today. And diving in. You ready to get going?
Let's do it, Jared. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So tell us a little bit about your journey to 2022. Where did you grow up? Who were some of the hustle kind of mindset people in your life that helped you become so effective in the world?
Well, I did notice you have the book Start With Why in your office where we're recording, and Simon Sinek's always been someone that I've really been inspired by. But yeah, I grew up in Gilroy, California, which is about an hour away from Santa Cruz out here at the beach. And you know, I'd always say that growing up, I had little to no ambition, you know, so much so that my older brother was smart. He was like straight A's, that type of stuff. And I was like, worst case scenario, I can live on his couch, you know, that sort of thing. It got pretty
No childhood dream? There was no childhood dream?
I mean, I wanted to be an NBA player, this whole nother thing, and then that dream was crushed by my fifth grade teacher trading basketball cards and him basically telling me, you know, that's not going to happen. And then I was like, oh, I know I know. And
did you know it or did he crush you right there and then?
In reflecting when I was older, I was like, oh, that was the moment, you know, where it was like, okay, I'm kind of done with that. And then I wanted to be a broadcaster, actually. So like Jim and Bob, like, I mean, I grew up a Warriors fan when they were winning 15 games a season.
Yeah.
Not losing.
Remember
15
those?
games a season. Yeah. So Jim and Bob, and I'd watch those guys or whoever, but it was always basketball. And I moved from, you know, wanting to be a player to a broadcaster to even the announcer. So yeah, I had some dreams for sure, and those were the ones that are coming to mind now. But fast forwarding through growing up, I went to Chico State in Northern California, known as a party school.
Yeah.
Was in top frat there, lived above the most popular bar in town, did the whole thing, repped spring break trip, Monster Energy drinks, things like that. Anti-hangover company, I had a bunch of rep jobs. And then
what were you studying in college?
Recreation administration.
Interesting. So staying in sports world a little bit.
Kind of, yeah, kind of, sort of, yeah. I mean, at the time, like in high school before that, I was like, if I can go work in board shorts and sandals and, you know, maybe like at the lake and, you know, teaching wakeboarding lessons or something that. And then going through college and everything else, I started to find ambition through the fraternity of all things, Sigma Chi, even though it was, you're SIG? Look at
Brothers.
that, in Hogue. Where'd you go to school?
In Boulder.
Yeah, I love the little
That's
synchronicity. That's dope. But yeah, so you know.
I was going to ask, and then I was like, as you said, I was like, cool.
Yeah, SIGs. Yeah,
there's a lot of synchronicity here between us.
I love it, yeah. It's just when we connected, seeing what you're doing with Zen Hustle, I mean, that's kind of just fast forwarding my story. I ended up getting a chip on my shoulder and really, I had a DUI in college, only one I had. And there was someone who said, welcome to the club. And that it was that moment where I was like, no, I don't want to be in this
Your life's going down a path.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was the rude awakening. So I started my first business around that age, 22, and I still operate it today, 11 years later. It's called Swagworks. But it was originally called Chico Feet, and there was a whole story there. Anyways, came back to Silicon Valley where I grew up, and you know, I did the thing. I had a bigger chip on my shoulder because people.
What do you think? Was the chip just ego? What when you call it chip on the shoulder?
Improve myself, like with the DUI, like welcome to the club, fuck up, that type of stuff. It was like I need to not only prove to myself but proof to others.
Okay. And where did that hustle drive for the business come from? Where do you think?
My parents are entrepreneurs. They own a long-time office supply company, and grandparents on each side. So, and I'm Jewish, so it's in the blood, that type of thing. But yeah, it just kind of unfolded, and I was listening to the book Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
When I
Napoleon Hill.
Amazing, 1937. Just
it's 1937.
Yeah,
we're coming up on 100 years on that book.
Yeah,
Jesus. Yeah,
it's nuts. But that book is incredible, and I mean, I didn't get into spirituality intentionally until the past 3 years. But when I did, and I first started like learning about manifesting, I was like, oh, I know this stuff. This Think and Grow Rich, the whole book, and it blew my mind that the whole book is a spiritual book, because I've always connected in my life to spiritual things, but growing up Jewish, I didn't really know I had another option. I thought it was like, either I'm this religion or I don't identify it. And I would be like, well, I feel more spiritual, but I didn't know that like you could learn about spirituality and things like that. So anyways, the other chip on my shoulder when I came to Silicon Valley was, everyone knows out here that it's tech central, right? So if you're not building some sort of startup or tech type company, and you're a guy that puts logos on things, right? And I differentiate myself by not only selling swag, branded merchandise, but offering videography too, white labeling it. And other things like that, building websites. So we did more than just that. We do. So anyways, there's a lot of ways I had to get creative, and I ended up becoming, I was on the board of a couple nonprofits at age 23, and I was running the Silicon Valley Young Professionals by 25, 27, something like that.
That's great.
Named Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list at age 31. And I built my business up to $1 million company while working like less than 4 hours a day, like 2 hours a day. So I had
Tim Ferriss involved in that a little bit.
That. And the girl I was seeing at the time was a cheerleader for the Niners. So like the whole, my favorite team is the Niners. I'm interviewing the VP and the president of the Niners, and field passes. And there's Aaron Rodgers right there, Clay Matthews. I remember that Packers game, So just everything had like the dream life.
Okay.
But I knew there was something that wasn't right within me. And I went through a numbing depression, and through that, ayahuasca found me. And then when I did ayahuasca, that changed my entire life. So that's like quick overview.
That's the quick overview. Thank you. So there's usually 3 catalysts that we've noticed in our interviews. Parents, strong foundation of parents, either hard hustle or against the hard hustle, like going yin or yang, like I want to push it harder than my parents did, or my parents push it so hard I have to live up to that. So that was one thing I heard in your story. The other one was that drive aha moment of like, I don't want to go down this path. I got to change my life. And then the third one is some ambitious goal that like arises out of you somewhere of like, I want to do something with my life. And what's that going to be? So at the time, like do you remember what the goal was back in your 20s and early 30s? Like, was it money? Was it like, what was the drive back then?
Looking back, it was external validation, needing to be seen, but I didn't know that. I didn't have, because we're not taught these sorts of things, right? So that was what, like, part of it too was my parents' business started in 1980, and there was probably 20 of 50, I don't know how many, over 20 office supply companies in Silicon Valley, in the greater Silicon Valley. Not Office Depot, not Office Max, Staples,
small,
Costco.
family-run businesses.
Yeah, exactly. To this day, they're the only last one remaining that's independently
compared to the
run.
Big corporate ones.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it's a dinosaur industry, especially now post-pandemic.
Yeah.
And for their 30th anniversary or something like that, I think it was their 30th anniversary, all my dad wanted was to be featured in the news for their 30th anniversary, and that they still were there. So I wrote an amazing story. I wrote it up on a typewriter because he started his business by going door to door selling and repairing typewriters, then grew it from there. So it took me like hours to write on a typewriter. Like, it's hard. I'm 33 4 years old. So I don't know how old you are.
I'm 46.
Yeah, you probably never used a typewriter.
Just for fun.
Yeah,
at my parents' office. I also worked at my dad's factory. Back east.
So parent business. So anyways, they didn't give us the time of day, no response or anything like that. And then that same organization that I was, no fault to them, and not talking bad or anything, but that was part of the inspiration, motivation there. Like I felt like I let my dad down, and that's all he wanted. And he's like, with your connections through being on these nonprofits, and I couldn't do it. So one of my goals from there was like, okay, I really want to be seen, but I didn't really know that. And that's I had my sights on being named to Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list, and then I achieved that goal. And I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm more proud of that than building $1 million company while only working a couple hours a day, and not having employees. I had employees, but I shifted to a freelancer business model, so very lean as well. So there's a lot of profit there. So financial freedom, the whole thing, but it's that external validation that was really what I was seeking.
Okay, so what was there, like an aha moment during that business? So you got the Forbes list, everything's going well, this issue with your father happens. So what then, how does your path diverge now to the work that you're doing now?
Well, that was ayahuasca. So it was just,
Was that in America, or you went to South America?
I did here.
Okay.
Yeah. But it doesn't really matter. I had the experience that I was seeking. And from there, that first night, like my whole book is not about ayahuasca, but it's about my journey in the past 3 years, and really what Zen Hustle is about, and what Soul Life Balance is about. I was out of balance. I was so much in my masculine, that archetypal energy of the masculine, of yang, of just work-wise, that I was disconnected from my soul. And most of us in the West, especially in corporate business culture, are disconnected from our soul. And we're just focused on do this, do that, do that. And it's like, where's the time to soften, go within, and connect with yourself, even to just check in with yourself? So through doing through experiencing the medicine, yes, I processed different traumas and different things that came up, but the biggest takeaway was this message of Soul Life Balance. And that was back in 2019. I started the Soul Seeker podcast, which was my 5th podcast.
Wow.
I had more, and I produced 9 over the years. And I wrote 3 books in a year previous to that. So like content has always been something I've been
comes
passionate.
To you.
My human design is manifester, if you ever talk about human design on here. But anyways, visionary, all that type of stuff. And I knew that the next podcast, Soul Seeker, would be like the one I would stick with. And I knew that my next book would be called Soul Life Balance. And I just wrote 3 books in a year. So in 2019.
Whereas most people just try to get through 1 book. That's a huge achievement.
I know.
My gosh.
So
it's huge.
In 2020, like when everyone was like, oh, I'm finally going to write my book. I was doing such deep inner work, and I was so connected, and I still am now, to my intuition, my higher self, and everything else, that I knew it wasn't the time to write the book. I didn't know why. I just knew that
2020 wasn't the time.
2020, that would have been the perfect time. This is Soul Life Balance. This is Zen Hustle, right? Because you could look at that on paper, be like, well, I have more time than I've ever had, and I know I can knock out a book because I did 3 in a year, so now's the time to do it. But I didn't know why. And last year, in July of 2021, I went on a yoga retreat in Shasta, Mount Shasta, and it was at that retreat where there's probably about 10 to 15 people there, and every single one of them was gravitating towards me and asking me so many questions about spirituality. Because mind you, I changed everything in my life. I changed everything. The content I was consuming, the relationships, everything was about spirituality. That was it. That's all. And I was doing deep, deep inner work, medicine work included, and in Aubrey Marcus's mastermind, Fit for Service. So I was developing at a rapid pace, and people were gravitating towards me that had been doing the work for like 10 years. And here I had been only consciously, intentionally doing the work for about 2 years. So in that moment, I realized in reflection, actually, that I was at the 12th stage of the hero's journey cycle of this current iteration of going down the spiritual path, and that now I was ready to write the book. So it wasn't until July of 2021 that I was like, okay, now I feel ready. And then I took about 7 months to write it.
Yeah, good.
You know, if I want to, I could have wrote it in a few weeks.
Yeah.
You know, like,
well, I'm glad you took time to do it.
Exactly.
So we're gonna take a short break, and we're gonna dive into the book. We're here with Sam, and stay tuned. Are you seeking to become a thought leader in your area of expertise? Do you want to have a following of people who are connected, engaged, who are listening to you and want to hear from you frequently? Are you currently an author, TEDx speaker, keynote host, coach, consultant, or entrepreneur founder? Are you hoping to be one of these roles? If so, you're gonna love this. We spent years creating this unique and bold expert level online course called Break On Through. It's a 6-week video curriculum with myself, Jared Brick, a media marketing expert, along with 4 other top leaders. Our goal is to skyrocket you into thought leadership role at any stage and any age in your career field by leveraging media and the modern syndication processes. Right now, we have a special offer running for just the first 10 people to sign up for this exciting and engaging online course. Click below to learn more, and we hope to see you in the spotlight soon. Why would I create a course called Break On Through? What was it about? So it was inspired by the legendary artist, musician, poet, Jim Morrison, to break on through the barriers that we create for ourselves in our mind and sometimes externally in our world. When you're on your journey to becoming a thought leader, you have to break on through into that next level to get you into that spotlight. So what we did is create a 6-week online video journey with myself and 4 other experts to guide you along that path over the 6 weeks, each week with a breakthrough challenge to allow you to implement and try and use this new muscle and these new skills to build into your journey at any stage in your career and any age. We've worked for people under 10 years old into their 80s at different stages of their career so that they can become thought leaders. We have an incredibly high success rate, and we have incredible testimonials from our graduates who've had breakthrough results in just a few weeks of implementing our online course. So check out the link below, request an invitation, and we want to see you in the spotlight of thought leadership with Break On Through. Take care. See you soon. Hey, welcome back. We're here with Sam Kabert, and he's finished his book. Last year you finished it?
It was actually February of 2022. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's a very new book, Soul Life Balance, and we're going to dive into a little bit more about the book itself. We heard a little bit about your story. We heard a little bit about how you got to the place of writing the book. So let's break it down. Soul. How do you define soul for people?
Yeah, that's a big one, right?
Yeah, it's like you're using a big word. It means a lot to different people. How do you use the term?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to think of it like the movie Soul by Pixar and Disney.
Okay.
And if you guys haven't seen that movie, then that's your homework. Go see that movie.
We'll put a link to it and we'll put it in the podcast. Yeah.
I'll send you my YouTube link too, because I made a 50-minute video that is a deeper dive of the concepts behind the movie Soul.
Okay.
Because when I saw that movie, my mind was absolutely blown. And I can use this to describe what soul means to me. And I think the movie that spoke to me so much, and probably many of us. But have you personally seen it?
Yes. Yeah, with my kids.
There's a part in the movie, if you guys haven't seen it, where they call it the Great Before. And that's the idea of where soul comes, and before they go through the portal to come into the dimension and the realm of Earth. So it's very esoteric and it gets very deep, but for me, I think of this whole human experience as this being an experience in this dimension on this planet where time exists. However, outside of this planet and on other planets, other dimensions, time doesn't exist. So if we zoom out, and it's very hard for the brain to conceptualize that, we think about all our quote unquote past lives or future lives. happening right now,
Yeah.
right? So those are all happening. And I think of it as you being Jared, me being Sam, right? Like that's our ego. That's who we are in this timeline, in this incarnation.
Okay.
However, our higher self, our soul, is also playing out those other egos in parallel lives, whether it be past or future. Does that make sense?
No, totally. And it's funny because we just watched 2 films, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a wild film about multi-realities all happening at the same time. And then also the new Doctor Strange.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if you've seen the newest Doctor Strange, but I watched it both with my kids. And I think my kids are 9 and 12. So they're like, this is a thing? Like they're really blown away. But like there's multiple realities. Every decision we make takes us down a potential new path. Is that also part of your belief?
Yeah. Yeah.
That every decision we make takes us into a new reality, or how do you see that?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question, and this is part of the reason why earlier I said I didn't feel ready to write the book.
Yeah.
Because these were the conversations I was having daily with my friends, and that's the power of a mastermind. When I was in Fit for Service for 2 years straight. But anyways, the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once describes it as, I believe they call it universes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that movie was really good. It was great, but I can be a little bit of a stickler.
Oh, yeah.
So the part that didn't resonate with me in that movie is, to me, that's more timelines than universes.
Yeah, multiple timelines going all different times. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And Rogan talks about this a lot. And that was really planting the seed for me all those years I was listening to Rogan before I got into spirituality intentionally. I was like, whoa, that's so interesting.
So you were getting into it. It was soaking in.
Exactly. Yeah, I was always...
That's the pre-phase, right?
Pre-phase. Westworld, like looking back on Westworld, if you guys have watched Westworld, that's a show about remembering your past lives, right?
Yeah.
Different storylines, the different stories of the characters, the robots essentially in Westworld, that's like us. These are the stories that we're in. And now that we're going through the awakening process, a lot of people are starting to tap into their gifts, whether it be entering into the Akashic field, which that's a whole nother thing to talk about, and channeling, or just past lives. There's so many incredible things happening.
Okay, so succinctly, how, I meet you on the street, you write this book. Oh, so what does soul mean to you? Do you have a concise statement that you tell people?
No, I mean, that's an interesting question. I haven't really been asked that too much, but it's your higher self. It's you, the version of you that is, it's your innate wisdom, right? I think when we close our eyes and kind of like before we started the podcast and you ground in, and when you start to go within and you hear those whispers, that's your soul.
Got it. Okay. So is the book primarily a guide? Is it your journey? Is it your story? I haven't read it yet. I apologize.
No, you're good.
I will read it. But are you taking people through practices? So give us an overview.
Yeah, so the subtitle is a guide to igniting and integrating spiritual awakenings. So for me, like, I don't look as an awakening being that moment and it's like, now I'm awakened, now that's a constant state, right? Whether it be through meditation or a medicine ceremony or anything else, awakening is often talked about that type of thing where it's like that, but I don't believe in that. I believe it's a process. So it's very disorienting when someone is going through the awakening experience, and that could be through an existential crisis as well. So it is absolutely 100% a guide, and really it's a reframe of work-life balance, because work-life balance is double yang energy, right? It's that archetypal energy, the masculine of yang, where it's due and how we show up. Soul life balance is a reframe where you put yourself first and foremost always, while simultaneously reframing, realizing that work is a part of the human experience.
A big part, which most people are investing more time in anything into their work, more than sleep.
Right.
They're spending more time at work than they sleep or do anything else in their lives. So it becomes a question of, what's the time about? How are you spending that time? Are you caring for yourself during that time period? So I'm glad you're bringing all that up. So when people reach out to you for the book, what do you think they're going through? What are some of the challenges you're noticing in your community that people are going through?
I see two sides of it. There's one, you're going through a spiritual awakening and you don't have the resources, and because one of the beautiful things about spirituality is there is no set guide that's like, do this, do that, do that. Like, whereas religion tells you exactly how to do it. So that's a beautiful thing, but that's also the disorienting thing. So this book is meant to be that sort of guide to help you to choose your own adventure. You could go through the table of contents and be like, oh, that resonates with me, I'm going to go deeper. Or you read the whole thing and be like, not so much that, but this is interesting. And that's exactly what I did. Now, the second half of it is not so much someone who is going through an existential crisis or an awakening, but someone who is starting to hear that whisper that there's something more. That person that is working so hard, doing so much in their life and feeling like all I do is work and there's got to be something more. Or perhaps you've experienced some level of success like I did, and then you're like, I thought I'd feel different. And then, just like the movie Soul, you start the inward journey. This is the guide for you there as well. So it can be either the person that wants to go really deep, or the person that's just like, I think there's something more, but I don't really know what it is. And here's a way that it could potentially be too deep. But yeah, it definitely hits both sides of the coin.
And tell me a little bit about the community you're building around the book and around some of your work with Soul Seeker, and what are some of the, I don't know if you want to share a personal story of someone that you've met going through it.
Yeah, I've been leading men's groups for about 8 months now, and one of the guys who's attended, he had perfect attendance until he missed one, and he prided himself on that. But he sent it in our WhatsApp thread, because we have an ongoing thread in between the meetings, that this wasn't prompted. I didn't ask anything. I don't even remember how it came up. I think he was just sharing a win. But he said that the men's group has been so impactful that he stopped seeing his counselor that he's been seeing for 2 years, because it's made all the difference. So that's like something that just, hits me in the heart, and it's amazing. And it's not something I take pride in, from doing this. We're just saying the container, and it's about you going within. We're here to lift each other up and support, but I would never take credit and be like, oh, that was me, you know what I mean?
So you're bringing, I'm imagining that you're bringing all of this work into your everyday. Everything that you do now is part of this.
Yes.
There's no disconnection.
Right.
It's all part of this. The men's work you do, you lead a yoga class, you have the podcast. What else on the business side are you doing?
Speaking. So
engagements.
I've gone into keynote speaking. So my primary audience is professionals. So speaking to business professionals, I'm doing keynotes, breakout sessions, all business demographic. And that was interesting to get into as well, because the book is so esoteric and deep. It was like, okay, well, I can't really speak to like a spiritual demographic because they already know this, and I'm like the business guy, so I don't really have that background. However, the initial subtitle for the book, it was something like From Workaholic to Inner Freedom or something like that. And initially the book was going to be geared towards workaholics and business people hearing that whisper that there's something more. But through the writing process, that's not what wanted to be written, what came to the surface to emerge. It was so much deeper. So it became something else. So now it's just interesting how when I got into speaking, it was like going back to the initial of helping people in business to be more mindful. So the big thing is bringing more mental health in the workplace, psychological safety, mindfulness. I leave out all the spiritual stuff. Don't want any of that dogma. It's pretty much simple mindfulness. Like I talk about internal family systems a lot, which is parts work. It's the voices in our head. And by make it relevant to business, like if we can clear out our head and clear out that mental chatter, then we can be more productive with our colleagues and we can communicate more effectively. Things like that.
Got it. So stay tuned for more. We're going to be wrapping up with Sam with some tips and next step practices that I want to talk about. I always like to leave people with some next steps that they can take either through your work or things that you recommend.
Cool.
So we'll be right back. Okay, we're back with Sam. We're going to be talking about some of the things that you do in your own life, new practices that you love. I know you love yoga. I've seen your Instagram. You're doing yoga on a stand-up paddle.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me about some of the things that made the transformation as far as practices.
Yeah.
Because it really, like at some point it comes down to like, yes, there's the inner work, and then there's the outer expression of like, I got to put this into habits, rituals, and practices.
Yeah,
so tell me some of the things that you do that inspire you.
Yeah, two things that come up for me. One is sadhana, which I'll get into.
Okay.
Three things, and another is wiffle, and the third is not approaching mindfulness and spirituality as a to-do list. So I'll start with that one first. Most of the time when we see people starting to get into mindfulness, forget about spirituality and that dogma, if you want to look at it that way, we think of it as, oh, I need to get my meditation in. And if you practice transcendental, I was just thinking about transformational breathwork, but transcendental meditation, it's 20 minutes twice a day. So then there's that. And if you don't, maybe it's just once a day, 10 minutes, whatever it is, but it's meditation. Another is journaling, and it could be in the morning, could be at night, or even in the afternoon, perhaps. Another could be like earthing. Now it's summertime at the time of recording, going outside and earthing, like taking your shoes off or your sandals off and feeling the pulse of the earth, which can get a little hippy-dippy and a little esoteric. Another could be
well, I'm thinking back to Pretty Woman. This was something
I gotta rewatch that.
Do you remember that?
No.
She said, take your shoes off, go walk in the grass.
Yeah, exactly.
And just be and just calm your mind. And he had a big business meeting coming up, and he took his shoes off and he's walking in the grass. So if you're a big fan of Pretty Women, you learned about this way back in the 80s.
Is that Julia Roberts and Richard Gere?
Yeah. And Richard Gere was the busy, business millionaire. And he had a big meeting he was really stressed about.
Yeah.
And she said, go take your shoes off and go walk barefoot on the grass.
Right.
So it's not like we tend to like put these in these boxes, but there are just like these basic things we can do that aren't super out there of just like, go walk on the beach, go walk on the grass.
I agree with you.
It's not, it's doable. It's very doable.
My point, the to-do list part, I totally agree with you, is like a lot of times when people start down this path, they want to meditate, check. They want to journal, check. Oh, did I take
another to-do checklist?
Exactly, which defeats the whole purpose. So I would say if this is something you want to try out, do exactly that. Try it out.
Yeah.
Don't put more pressure on yourself, because the real practice is to be in the moment and ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? And if the answer is to not meditate, but your calendar said it was time to meditate, then don't meditate, right? So that's like one of the most practical things you can do. Another is just like you said, Jared, where it's taking some mindful breaths and just going within before you go to a meeting or whatever it is to just calm your nervous system down. The WIFL is an acronym. It stands for What I Feel Like Expressing. I love this for business because I've always used this since 2012. I was taught this at a conference, and I've always used it in my meetings. And when you start a meeting, it's an opportunity to express what's going on in your head in that moment that's keeping you from being fully present in the moment. So it's a chance to build on psychological safety, knowing that you're able to be seen, heard, and witnessed by your peers. And the last part is sadhana. So sadhana is super interesting. It's a Sanskrit word, and it basically translates to ultimate potential. It's being in the pursuit. It's the cliche of it's not about the destination, it's about the journey itself, right? So sadhana is, you can think of it like this and call it your ultimate potential, but you don't name that. Where I got it wrong was like my ultimate potential, my goal, if you will, was to be Silicon Valley's 40 under 40. No, that's not the ultimate potential. We don't label the ultimate potential. The roots, the branches from sadhana are the practices that are going to keep us in alignment on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. So rather than focusing on what, if I achieve A, B, C, I will feel X, Y, Z, we're focusing on the present moment. So that's what sadhana is all about. So those are like the four things I'd say that people could do. And then breath work's really good. You could do just a simple box breathing, inhale for 4 seconds, hold, and exhale. And that's a really good way to ground in.
Yeah, I just actually was on a podcast or a Mindshare group, and we were talking about the box group of 8 seconds. 8 seconds in, holding, 8 seconds out. You recommend 4 seconds?
I mean, 4 is like kind of standard. You'll hear different things from different people. If you want to get more energy, then work on inhaling longer, and then to relax, exhale longer. So some people will mess with the seconds and it won't be consistent. But for someone starting out, like 4 seconds is pretty easy to inhale for 4, hold it for 4. Once you get to 8 seconds, it can be a little bit more tricky if you're not used to practicing this. So yeah, you could start with a round of 4 seconds. We could do it right now if you want. You'd inhale for that 4, hold, and then the next round you'd do 5 seconds.
Let's do a round. Yeah.
All right. So for all you guys listening, if you are not driving and if you're not walking your dog, doing the dishes or anything like that, if you're in a place that you can find a comfortable seat, then just go ahead and take a moment to sit down. As you do so, you can start to close your eyes and just watch the breath. Without making any changes to the breath, just bringing your conscious awareness to the breath in this moment. As you do so, some thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and even stories might start to arise. And the invitation is, rather than letting those pass, sit with them to see with what wants to be emerged and come to the surface. We'll go ahead and find an exhale. And inhale from the bottom of the belly, letting the belly expand like a balloon. Bringing that breath all the way up to the chest and holding. And exhaling, letting the shoulders drop, belly to spine. Holding the breath at the bottom. And we'll inhale. Letting the belly expand like a balloon all the way up to the chest. And exhale. Letting your breath return to its natural state in your own time, flickering your eyes open.
So that parasympathetic nervous system you're tapping into?
Yeah, exactly. And something like that, we did 2 rounds. Like you can do a few more rounds at your own pace and you can feel how much more relaxed. And there's another one I really like too, to bring more energy, which is a little bit different, but it's an inhale. It's an inhale through the nose and an exhale through the mouth. And you do that for a count of 10. And then you hold the breath for 10 seconds, and then you do the inhale and then exhale for a count of 20. You hold it for 20 seconds, and then you do 30 counts of the inhale and the exhale, and then you hold that for 30, and then that's going to give you a lot more energy. It's not as like calming and relaxing. That's going to lift you up.
It's going to help you build energy if you got something big you want to rise up for.
Exactly. Maybe you're waking up trying to wean yourself off coffee or something like that, right?
Speaking of, are there any products that you recommend in your life that you're really inspired by lately? Either foods or drinks or supplements?
Yeah. You know, I had comedian Brent Pella on the pod recently, and he has Cacao Bliss. Have you heard that? Yeah. I've been drinking that. Cacao Bliss is really good. They're not a sponsor. Magic Mind is a really good nootropic. I think they're out of Silicon Valley, or maybe.
Are you into the mushroom adaptogens?
Yeah, I'm into all that, and so I make my breakfast burritos with lion's mane, so I go straight to the source.
You go straight dried or fresh?
Fresh from the grocery store.
Wow.
But I mean, lion's mane. Like, so I had my friend over this morning.
So if somebody's watching, they don't know what lion's mane is.
Yes, it's a mushroom. Yeah. And it helps with cognitive function. So a lot of the mushroom adaptogens, and this isn't psilocybin, it's not any psychedelic, it's just a fungi, right? Like shiitake or whatever. But lion's mane helps with the brain. So when we hear Joe Rogan talking about like alpha brain, or when we hear
the nootropics,
all this type of stuff, lion's mane is one of those ones. So it tastes delicious and it's really good. You can get at most grocery stores. At least out here.
At least in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, I'm like, at least out here.
As you're saying that, I'm like, I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah. At least out here, but it is so good. I put in my breakfast burritos when I make those, and it's you can feel the difference. So I definitely like all the nootropics and the mushroom products. I'm into all that stuff. I've been drinking kombucha since 2012.
Yeah.
I used to have a kegerator in my house that had kombucha on tap.
Okay.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
You're literally brewing it and making it?
I would brew it and make it, and then before I did that, I was getting it delivered from GTs. They had like a distribution, and it was great, but I don't do that anymore now. I don't drink kombucha as much.
Not anymore. Okay.
Water.
So back to your journey. So people can obviously order the book. We're going to put a link to the book. They've got your podcast they can listen to. They may be at a speaking event soon featuring you, or they can request you at your company. Don't forget, you can also request speakers at your companies when they have events. A lot of people don't realize that's how some speakers get booked. And then anything else? Any other communities that you want to invite people into? You mentioned Fit for Service. Do you want to just do a quick one about that? Because I learned about that. That looked really cool. Yeah. And I'm actually looking at the Arizona fall.
You gotta go.
Is it, either fall or spring.
It's fall. It's Sedona. So Fit for Service, for anyone listening, Aubrey Marcus, he's been on Rogan's podcast multiple times, and when Joe Rogan is talking about Alpha Brain from On It, he's talking about Aubrey's company. Aubrey started On It in I don't know how long ago, maybe 10 years ago or whatever. And his flagship item that really took off was on Joe Rogan's podcast called Alpha Brain. And it's a nootropic. It helps you feel like you're clicking on all cylinders mentally. And Aubrey's been in the peak performance, human optimization through supplements game for a number of years, but simultaneously very outspoken on the healing powers of plant medicine, ayahuasca namely. So I knew of Aubrey Marcus and I checked out some of his content, but through a series of synchronicities after I did ayahuasca, Fit for Service, it found me just like ayahuasca did. And I joined Fit for Service. It's a mastermind of about 150 people, and it's so much deeper than personal development. I call it soul development. Okay. So anyways, I went through their program for 2 years straight, and they switched their business model in 2022. It used to be trimester long or year long programs. Now it's a la carte events, and I can't recommend them highly enough. Going to a Fit for Service event, there's no drugs or medicine, psychedelics, none of that at all. But the amount of deep inner work and the people, the resonance of the people there is as if you did a medicine ceremony, the transformation that you could feel. It has the potential at least. So I highly recommend
love that.
it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at it for the next event. So if anyone wants to follow up with Sam, we got his book. We're going to put links to his podcast. A lot of interesting things you brought up where they can learn more about you personally and some of the things that you brought up. So thank you, man. It's been really awesome to be with you and get to know you through a podcast. And I have a feeling there's a lot more here.
A lot more here.
So I think, there's going to be a lot more. So if you're interested, let us know. And remember, Zen Hustlers is a resource website to support you along your journey for balance, whatever that looks like in your life. Whatever you're struggling with, whatever you're challenged by, you have support, you're not alone, and we got your back. Take care and stay tuned for the next one. Bye-bye.